Hi students, today we are going to be discuss about the part of the special sensors. Today topic is the ear. So I hope you already know about this one. So main function of the ear is a hearing. So there is a one more function I would like to add upon that, so to maintain the equilibrium. So now we are going to see about the objective of this class. So first of all, we are going to see the structures. What are the structure of the ear, and each structures contain the specific functions. So we are going to cover the functions, and we are followed by that functions we are going to see about the auditory pathway, and followed by that as a mechanism. So how can the hearing process will be happen, and followed by this if there is any defects which is present in the ear, this comes under the applied aspects. So before we are entering in the structure of the ear, so we have to know about the overview of the hearing. So this is a main process, so by which an individual is able to perceive the frequency and intensity of the sounds and localization of the space. So next we are going to see about the structure. So it consists of three parts. One is the external, middle and inner. So it is the external ear, middle ear and inner ear. It consists of three parts of the ear. So they segregate as three parts. So one is the external ear, middle ear and inner ear. So now we are going to see about the one by one. So what is the part or which is present in the external ear? There is a cartilaginous pinna and auditory canal. There is a two part which is present in the external ear. So the pinna is a flap, elastic cartilage covered by skin. In human, the pinna is fixed, but in animals it is movable as per the sounds orientation. So next we are going to see the auditory canal. So the cartilaginous pinna is highly mobile, helps to localize the sound source. Okay, so next there is a auditory canal, or is called as a meatus. This conducts the sounds waves to the middle ear, and is a external 1/3 of the canal is cartilaginous around the internal 2/3 of the bone. Okay, so this canal is a 2.5 centimeter long tube as a temporal bone extending from the auricle to the eardrum. Okay, and this canal is contained as some of the protective mechanisms like us to contain the sebaceous glands and secrete the cerumen, which means the ear wax, and fine airs will be present in this wall. So these are things will be just helpful to just protect the or avoid the foreign bodies enter into the ear. So the oily cerements and air prevent the entry of the dust and foreign particles into the ear. If there is any excessive production of the sebum along with the lack of proper cleaning in the external meatus, so there is a excess productions of the wax will be present there, so the person cannot be able to clean properly. So what will happen? So it is going to be accumulated together, so it just block the ears, so the sounds cannot be able to enter. So this is if there is a accumulation of this one wax is called as an impaction of the wax that blocks the passage and produce a conduction deafness. Okay, now we are going to see the structure. So this is the structure, anatomical structure. So this is the right auricle, and this is the how just mentioned the concha as helix. So these are the structure. Then there's a main passage of the sound is called as a tragus. This is just mentioned here. And next, so we have to know about the auditory canal, little bit elaborate, and is a 24 millimeter, and there is a outer cartilaginous inner bony part which I already told about this one, and there's some wax which is present there to maintain the protective mechanism. So what is the function? The overall function of the external ear. So increases sounds pressure, because there is a pinna will be to just collecting the sounds, isn't it? So the sound location, we have to be easily to identify where the sound will be just located, and the sound will be just collecting by the pinna, and because there is a, it will be just enlarged and it will be just a flap, so that it will be easily to just collecting the sounds. So after that, this will be just warm humid environment requirement for the proper vibration of the tympanic membrane. And the same thing is the wax is a kills the bacteria and fungi. So these are the function, as overall function of the external ear. So next we are going to move towards the middle ear. The middle ear, air filled cavity in the temporal bone. Tympanic membrane forms the outer wall and medial wall is formed by the base of the cochlea. The middle ear, the tympanic cavity, is a rectangular air-filled compartment of the temporal bone. It is lined by the epithelial cells and has a four walls, the floor and the roof. Anterior wall is open to the exterior via the eustachian tube at the level of the nasopharynx. The medial wall contains the two small membrane covered opening, the oval window and the round window that separate the middle ear from the internal ear, and it is the presence in the middle ear. So now we see this two types of the windows. One is a oval window, another is a round window. So the overall structures is present in the middle ear as the ossicles, the small muscles, etc. So these are the exactly which is present in the middle ear. Next we are going to see about the tympanic membrane. The tympanic membrane is called the ear drum. I hope already know or you are able to see this one. This is a tympanic membrane, otherwise called the ear drum. It's a thin, elastic and semi-transparent conical membrane about the 50 to 90 millimeter square in the surface area. So it is made up of the collagen and elastic fibers. It is a inner surface and lined mucous membrane, and its outer surface is covering by the skin. So what is the main functions? So it be just actually presents oblique position 55-degree, faces downwards, and it be the laterally. So what is the main functions? So the eardrum is to receive the sound waves arising from the external ear. When sounds wave will strike over the tympanic membrane, it vibrates almost at the same frequency as that the sound waves. So the vibration of the membrane get transmitted to the tiny bone. So it means the malleus it's attached to it, so it stops the vibration soon after the cessation of the sound waves. So it will be just mainly helpful to just perceiving or receiving the sounds, or sound means is a vibration. The vibration, once the vibrations enter here, so immediately going to be hit over the eardrum. The eardrum is it is called as a tympanic membrane. So this will be, once it's going to be hit, so what will happen, it's going to be make a vibration. It's giving with the help of, there is a small bones like as a, it's called as a malleus. So immediately it's giving the vibration towards here, and this is going to be passed towards in the windows. So what will happen now? So this though thin, it stands as a mechanical barrier and prevents the entry of the foreign particle, thus as secretions than the other outer ear of the middle ear. So there will be a main function is going to be giving the passing the vibration, and the second thing that is to prevent the foreign particles, dust or secretions towards from the outer ear to the middle ear. So is acting as a preventing mechanisms areas. So this is a ear drum. Next we are going to be see the ossicles. So what are the auditory ossicles? These are actually, there are the three small bones. So that is called as the ossicular chain, and there is a malleus, incus, stapes. Okay, the malleus actually be just attached towards in the umbo of the tympanic membrane, and is incus is connector of the function, and there is a stapes is the smallest bone in the body. The footplate is the insert in the oval window on medial wall. So we're going to be clearly how to be just explain that one. So the extent of the across the middle ear cavity is one joint to the other. Actually, there is this contain the three bones. Is one is going to be directly attached towards in the eardrum. Okay, which already know about this one is a tympanic membrane, isn't it? So this bone will be just attached in the tympanic membrane, otherwise it's called as a eardrum. And here is a incus. This incus is going to be making the connector in between the stapes and malleus. Okay, this is a first bone, and this is from the eardrum, and this is the second bone. There is a what is used called as a incus, and this is the third bone is a stapes. So looking like as a chain. This is used called as a ossicular chain. So once if there is a vibration, the sounds will be just hit over the tympanic membrane is going to be just making the articulate. Okay, so what will happen if there is a articulates? So with the body of incus, the malleus articulate with the body of incus, that in turn articulates with the head of the stapes. So the foot plate of the stapes is attached to the oval window. Okay, so this area is going to be attached in the oval window. So what will happen immediately is just given the information from the eardrum towards in the oval window. So this pressure waves will be just travel through the ossicular chain and produce the vibration of the foot palate of the stapes, which is then transmit the vibration to the of the inner ear through the oval window. Okay, so I hope I will just explain again. So there are the three important bones that is going to be used called as a ossicle or ossicular chain. So what are the bone names? This is a malleolus. The first bone is a malleus, and this is a second one is a incus, and this is a stapes. So it will be just clearly attached towards in the tympanic membrane or eardrum. Okay, so eardrum and tympanic membrane, both the things is the same. So this is just attached, which means the malleus will be attached in the eardrum, and there is a incus will be just attached towards in the malleus, and the stapes is attached in the incus. So if this is going to be articulate, what will happen is giving the, if there is any vibration, it will be just hitting over the eardrum, so immediately it's going to be articulate. If it will going to be articulate, what will happen is going to be just making the more movement towards the incus also. So if there is any articulation, so what will happen? So it's given the articulation towards in the stapes also. So in the stapes, the foot plate, this is a foot plate. The foot plate is going to be hitting the oval window. So this is going to be just given the vibration towards in the inside on the inner ear. So hope you already know clear this concept. So let me move to the next line. Yeah, ossicles, all the three ossicles vibrate as a single unit when tympanic membrane vibrates. So function, what is the important function of the ossicles is we increase the force of the movement by the 1.32 times to the wall window. So they'll easily to just perceive the sounds. And followed by that we have a small muscles, which is called as the ossicular muscles. So stapedius and tensor tympani are two tiny skeletal muscles attached to the stapes and the malleus. So what are the important functions? Where will this get attached? So is attached is the manubrium of the malleus, the bony wall of the middle ear. It's the innervation of the fifth cranial nerve, which means the trigeminal nerve. So next, there's what is the main function of the tensor tympani is a pulse of malleus inwards and with tympanic membrane, making the tympanic membrane tensions and increases and responds to the specific frequencies. So here the tensor tympani muscles pull the handle of the malleus inwards, thereby increasing the tension of the tympanic membrane. This makes the membrane more responsive to the sound waves. And the stapedius is the small skeletal muscles in the bony in the body. In response of the loud noise, it contracts the pulls the foot plate of the stapes out from the oval window, and is dampening the vibration transmitted to the inner ear. So this is the main function of the muscles. That is again how to tell about there is a 3 bones and there is a 2 muscles. These 2 muscles, what's the name? One is the tensor tympani, another is the stapedius muscles. So both are the skeletal muscles. So now, so what are the main function of these 2 muscles? That is a pulsar malleolus and the stapedius will be support the ossicular chain, protect the inner ear from the high intensity sounds. So for example, I have to given this one, it's looking like the spring. So if there is any if you see in the any spring movement, so what will happen? So it bring back to the normal. It's giving this as much as possible as of force or tension. So then after once there is a force as the tension is got over, so what will happen? So it bring back to the normal. Similarly, so this muscle is going to be helpful to just giving to attach both the bones. So once the vibration will be just got over, what will happen is bring back to the normal. It cannot able to keep on, it will be attached over the oval window. So it will be just helpful for to just giving the more tension and bring back to the normal also. Hope everybody understand this one. So these 2 muscles will be helpful to just make the control of the 3 bones. Okay, as muscles is mainly control the 3 bones. For example, this muscles is not present. So what happened in the paralysis of the stapedius muscles? The patient is abnormally sensitive to the loud noises, is known as a hyperacusis. Okay, so if there is, it will be paralyzed. If they cannot be able to pull back as a normal, it cannot able to intact. So what will happen? So if it be paralysis, the person will be cannot able to abnormally sensitive to the loud noises. Okay, and I would like to add as one more information about the tensor tympani and stapedius. These 2 muscles in the middle ear act in the opposite directions, not in the same directions, and limit movement of the eardrum to protect against the loud and sudden noises. So it's going to be helpful for to just protect against the loud noises and sudden noises, and not fast enough for the gunfire and stiffens the when speaking. So these are the main overall function of the tensor tympani and stapedius muscles. The overall function of the middle ear is conduction of the sound waves and tympanic reflex, impedance matching, pressure equilibrium. Now we are going to see about what is the tympanic reflex, impedance matching and pressure equilibrium from the for the slides. Okay, the tympanic reflex is a latent period is of 40 to 80 milliseconds. The tympanic reflex is an attenuation reflex as characterized by the involuntary contraction of the tensor tympani and stapedius muscles. In response to a loud noise, it has a latent period as a 40 to 80 milliseconds. When both the muscles contract, the manubrium of the malleus moves inwards and stapes is be pulled outwards. These 2 actions results in the stiffness of the auditory ossicles, so that the transmission of the sound is being decreased. So and tympanic reflex protect the tympanic membrane from being ruptured by the loud sound. It also prevents the fixation of the foot plates of the stapes against the oval window during the exposure of the to loud sound. It helps to protect the cochlea from the damaging effects of loud sounds. Contraction of the tensor tympani and stapes during the exposure to the loud sound develop the stiffness of the auditory ossicles, so that the transmission of the sound into the cochlea is be decreased. Impedance matching. Impedance matching is a process by which tympanic membrane and auditory ossicles convert the sound's energy into the mechanical vibrations in cortical fluid with the minimum loss of the energy by matching the impedance offered by the fluid. The sound wave travels from the thinner medium to the denser medium, and the loss of sounds will be energy occurs. Middle ear compensates for this loss By increasing the sound energy level by the 30 decibels mechanism, how can it going to be given the processes? There's area difference between the tympanic membrane and oval window as a 17 times, and is a lever action and buckling factor. So these are things that will be helpful to just making the process by which tympanic membrane and auditory ossicles convert the sound's energy into the mechanical vibrations in cochlear fluids. Now we are going to be just a little bit elaborately, we are going to see about this how can it going to be given the mechanism of the lever action as well as the buckling factor. So first we are going to see the buckling factor. This is a conical shape of the tympanic membrane. As the membrane as it moves in the in and out, it buckles, so the arm in the malleus moves less than the surface of the membrane. This increases the force and decreases the velocity, so the pressure will be increases. And in thing we are going to see the lever action also. The ossicles act like as a lever system, so that stapes exert the great force or pressure as against the cochlear fluid. The result is generation of the vibrations in the cochlear fluid. The increase of the force is very essential to set up the vibration in cochlear fluid because of the higher inertia of the fluid. So the arm of the incus is shorter than the handle of the malleus. So by the lever actions, they increase the force and decrease the velocity of the stapes. They increase the pressure by the 1.30 times. Next we are going to see about this eustachian tube. This connects the middle ear with the pharynx and equalizes the air pressure on both sides of the tympanic membrane. This helps the membrane vibrates at the same frequency as the sound waves. The pharyngeal end on the tube is normally closed by the valve-like mechanism, but muscles movement open it during the swallowing, yawning, or sneezing. And the pressure in the middle ear equilibrates with the atmospheric pressure. So which means is normally not closed except during the yawning and the swallowing. And the throat infection can lead to the throat infections can lead to the middle ear infections. So if there is a blocked, vibrations are damped because of pressures in the eardrum in or out. So next we are going to see the middle ear as well as the inner ear. So what is the difference in between this one? So I hope you are able to see the difference between the middle ear and the inner ear. And here we have to given the schematic diagram of the ear. Is the external auditory canal, the air will be paused, the middle ear cavity and middle ear bones will be present there, which already told about this. There is a malleus, incus and stapes, and there is a two muscles will be there, and the tympanic membrane, which already told. This tympanic membrane is called as a eardrum, and is a over the oval window. The stapes is going to be attached to the oval window. And next we are going to see about this inner ear. So this is the inner ear. So we are going to see the structure of the scala vestibuli, cochlear duct and scala tympani. The internal, otherwise is called as the inner ear, is situated in the petrous part of the temporal bone. It is called as a labyrinth due to the presence of the complicated series of canals. Structure, it is divided into an outer bony labyrinth that houses an inner membranous labyrinth. The bony labyrinth contains a fluid called as a perilim that surrounds the membranous labyrinth. The composition of the perilim is similar to the cerebrospinal fluid, the CSF. The membranous labyrinth is a series of the fluid-filled membranous tubes and sacs which mimics the shape of the bony labyrinth. The fluid present in the membranous labyrinth is called as a endolimb, and that is rich in the potassium and resembles the intercellular fluid. The function of the cochlea is transaction of the sound energy into the action potential in the cochlear nerve fibers. The vestibular apparatus is described under the motor physiology. The inner ear is contains the two type of the labyrinth. One is the bony labyrinth and membranous labyrinth. So the cochlea is called the cochlea. Cochlea means is a snail shell Okay, looking like as a snail shell. This one is looking like as a snail shell. It is called as a labyrinth. It's a snail-shaped fluid filled in the coil tube. It has a outer bony spiral canal that has a houses and inner membranous cochlear duct. So there is a two types. One is a bony and another is a membranous. The bony is contained as a bony cochlea is part of the bony labyrinth, and in human the cochlea is a 35 millimeter in length and makes a 2 3/4 turns around the central bony core called as a modulus. Cochlear vessels are nerves that transverse through the base of the modules. A round of modules is a thin plate of the bone called a spiral lamina. So actually it will be just semicircular canal. Actually it will be just filled by the fairy limb. And in this side the membranous labyrinth. There is a spiral duct and cochlea, and this presence in the structures is called as a utricle and sacral, and it looks like as a semicircular duct. It's not like a canal. Actually it's a difference between the bony labyrinth is just present as a semicircular canal, is a semicircular duct, and here there is be filled by the fairy limb, and membranous will be filled by the endolimb. Next we are going to see about is what are the receptors which is present in the inner ear. There is a 3 receptors and 1 receptors in the cochlea and 2 receptors in the vestibular apparatus. And as a cochlea there is an organ of corti that are going to be mainly helpful for the sound, and in the vestibular apparatus is mainly helpful for is maintain the macula, static for the balance, and this is a cristae, this is for the kinetic balance, for the static and the kinetic balance. Okay, so there is a 2 receptor on the macula and cristae. Okay, so now we are going to see about the this diagram is going to be helpful for just differentiation for the vestibular apparatus and cochlear areas. So this is the 2 receptors will be present here, and in the organ of corti which is present in the cochlea. Okay, so there is a already told what are the receptors which is told. This cochlea, there is a organ of corti. Okay, and in here is macula and crista. There is a 2 receptor which is present in the vestibular apparatus. So first we are going to see about this. There is a 3 which already told about. There is a 3 receptors. First we are going to see about the organ of corti, so which is present in the cochlear areas. In the organ of corti, so I hope will be just elaborated here. Yeah, this is the organ of corti. So what are the things which is present there? There is a basilar membrane, and there is a blood capillary which is present there, and microvilli. There is a tectorial membrane, and there is a 2 type of air cells will be there. There is a one is a outer air cells and one is a inner air cells. These are the supporting cells. So this is going to be, this is the nerve fibers is going to just carry the all the sensation and is going to given towards in the higher center. Yeah, I hope this will be just elaborated here. So in the cochlea, in cross section of the cochlea, is inside there is a organ of corti, which means the receptors. So in the inside the receptor will be present. The organ of corti or the spiral organ is a specialized structures located on the basilar membrane, is containing the receptors for the hearing. So when the sounds waves reach the organ of corti, it acts as a transducers, converts the mechanical forms of the energy into the action potential into the cochlear nerve. So there are the 2 air cells which already told. There is a outer air cells and also inner air cells. So it will be situated in the basilar membrane separated by the rods of corti. So the triangular gap between the rods of the corti is known as a tunnel of corti. So the inner air cells is closer to the modulus or about the 3500 in human cochlea. They form the single row of the extend the entire length of the cochlea. The lateral to the tunnel of corti, there are the present the 3 rows outer hair cells about the 20,000 in number. So the cilia of the outer hair cell projects into the thin filament, flexible gelatinous tectorial membrane that covers the rows of air cells, whereas the cilia of the inner air cells do not touch the membrane. The viscous membrane contains the collagenous and glycoprotein and firmly attached only along its medial edge. So followed by that, we are going to be see the auditory pathway. So the auditory pathway, which already told about that, we know about this organ of Corti. It is initiated from the organ of Corti, and by the organ of Corti is going to be just reach the bipolar cells of the spiral ganglia, and going to be reach in the cochlear nuclei, and it's going to be just reach in the superior olivary nucleus. Lateral lemniscus, inferior colliculus, medial geniculate body which is present in the thalamus, and is a primary auditory cortex, area number 41, and other auditory cortex 42 and 22. Actually, the auditory pathway in general has a 5 order of a neuron, that is the neuronal arrangement with the complex one. The first order neuron, second order neuron, third order neuron. So like that, it will be just coming. The first order neuron is starts from the air cells and project to the ipsilateral, which means opposite or dorsal, and it's the same side, sorry, not the opposite side, it's the same side, or dorsal and ventral cochlear nuclei of the medulla oblongata. The cochlear nerves are bipolar as a neurons whose cells bodies are present in the spiral ganglia. The second order neuron starts from the cochlear nuclei and projects to the superior olivary nucleus. The third order neuron from the superior olivary nuclei ascends bilaterally to lateral lemniscus. As a fourth order neuron projects bilaterally from the inferior colliculate to the medial geniculate body of the thalamus. And fifth order neuron, there's a starts from the medial geniculate body and terminate the primary auditory cortex, area number 41 and 42, situated in the superior temporal gyrus. So now actually this characterizes the middle order of the neuron in the auditory pathway is extensive bilateral projection that helps to preserve the auditory capacity even if the one of the centers be affected. So there are the orderly tonotopic organization of the fibers in the auditory pathway. That means each fibers responds to given the tone of arrangement of fibers in based on the tone of sounds. The systemic pattern of the fibers is evident from the first order neuron and right up the primary auditory cortex. Again, there is a overview along with the diagram will be there. So this will be started from the air cells, cochlear nucleus by the help of this auditory nerve, and is going to be the superior olivary nucleus and inferior colliculus and medial geniculate body of the thalamus, and finally going to be reached in the auditory cortex. Mechanism of hearing: the sound is produced by the object that vibrates and set molecules of air into the motion. Human are sensitive to the 20,000 hertz of the sound frequency. Hertz means there is a cycle of the per seconds, and pitch there is a corresponding to the frequency of the stimulus. A loudness is correspond to the intensity of the stimulus. In the mechanism we are going to see about this hearing threshold, transmission of the sound waves and transductions. So in the hearing threshold we are going to see about this one is hearing is a 0 decibel. The threshold of the hearing is a 0 decibels at 1000 hertz for the normal young adult in the noise free environment. The sound is felt as well as heard at level of the 140 decibels. The decibel scales have to just given here below, and 140 decibels for the pain or damage of the ear, and 120 decibels is uncomfortable of the ear, and 80 is a shouting, and 60 is the normal conversation, and 20 is a whispering, and 0 is a hearing threshold. Actually these are the scale of the decibel which we can able to hearing the noise. Next, the transduction. The mechanical energy pressure waves of sound is converted into the receptor potential in the air cells and finally get conducted as a action potential, isn't it? So in the auditory pathway, the sound waves cause the basilar membrane and the tectorial membrane to flex, which is a bend cilia air cells in the one direction. So for cilium, the air-like appendages of the cell involves in the movement of transducing sensory information found on the receptors in the auditory and the vestibular system, and tippling, which is present over on the air cells, an elastic filament that attach tip of the one cilium to the side of the adjacent cilium, and insertional plaque, and the point of the attachment tip linked to the cilium. So here we are going to see about this one as a resting state of the air cells. In resting state, there is a two potential recorded from the ear. The resting membrane potential of the air cells is endoclear potentials. There's a two types. So the the basolateral is resting membrane potential of the air cells is a minus 60 millivolt. It is due to the continuous efflux of the potassium across in its basolateral membrane. The large electrical gradients favors the cations, the influx, especially the potassium through the transduction channels. In the absence of any auditory stimulus, the air cells remain at the rest. So with the stereocilia, state of the without any deflections. Then when it's going to make the generate the potential, this means this kind of the action potential. The air cells is a mechanoreceptor, which is a very sensitive to the direction and degree of the movement of cilia. The appropriated stimulus of the air cells is a lateral bending of the cilia. The deflection of the stereocilia as a little 0.5 nanometer generates the response of the air cells. When the shorter stereocilia bend towards the taller stereocilia, so what will happen? The cation channels will be open. So allowing the once there is a cation channel will open, they'll be allowing the entry of the potassium. Mostly the calcium will enter into the air cells. So what will happen? Resulting will be just a depolarization cause of opening the voltage gated calcium channels at the base of the air cells. So if it will be open the air cells, what will happen? It will increase the cytoplasmic calcium. The concentration causes a movement of fusion of vesicles with the synaptic as a specialization at the base of the air cells. Okay, so actually whenever the process of the repolarization, when the stereocilia is pushed away from the taller stereocilia towards the modulus, the apical transduction channels are closed, so leading to as a hyperpolarizations. So next we are going to know about the important thing. So the air cells act as a fine transducer with the depolarization or hyperpolarization depends on the direction of the movement of air cells, and magnitude of the change in the membrane potential depends on the distance they travel towards or away from the mid position. And next we are going to see the excitation of the air cells. Is mainly we are going to see about the receptor potential or cochlear microphonic potential. So cochlear microphonic is the electrical response that represents the summated intracellular potential of many air cells. It is generated instantaneously due to the large current flow across the apical surface of the air cells along the favorable electrical gradient. Every auditory stimulus produces a cochlear microphonics, and it follows the pattern of the vibration of the basilar membrane. The cochlear microphonics is an oscillatory event that has the same frequency as the auditory stimulus. It is proposed to originate primarily from the outer air cells, since it almost disappears after the lesion that destroy the outer air cells but spare the inner air cells. So what is the difference between the cochlear microphonics and action potential? So here there is a summation potential. So here we are going to see about this one. So what is the difference between these two? So here there is a cochlear microphonics is have no latency at all, and it doesn't have no refractive period, and is do not fatigue. It cannot be able to mask. But we see in the action potential is we having the latency, having the refractive period, and it having this neurons fatigue, and it be completely masked by the broad spectrum noise. Okay, finally we are coming for the auditory defects. So in the auditory defects, there is a two types of defects. One is in the as a conductive deafness, and another is a sensor neural deafness. Conductive deafness occurs due to the impairment of the transmission of or amplifications of sounds on the cochlea due to the disease of external or middle ear. Okay, the sound waves are conducted to the cochlea by the skull bones and produce a vibration of the basilar membrane. So the hearing loss is usually partial. So how can it's going to be making the conductive deafness? So maybe if the blockade of the external auditory canal or thickening of the tympanic membrane and acute and chronic otitis media and immobility of the ossicles. So these are the things is being, or this is a destruction of the auditory ossicles or restriction tube obstruction. So these are the things that comes under the conductive deafness. It's a sensorineural deafness. This occurs as a result of disease of the cochlea or the eighth cranial nerve. The degree of hearing impairment depends on the extent to which the structure of the effector, and here so how can it could be happen? So now there is a toxic degeneration of the hair cells and senile degeneration of the hair cells and damage of the outer hair cells and tumors which is present in the vestibulocochlear nerve. So trauma is a fractures of the base of the skull or labyrinthinitis and Meissner disease. So in this condition it will be just happening of the sensor neural deafness. So I hope it will be, I'll cover the maximum area of the zone here. So if you have any doubts, then just text in the group, you have to be comment, so there's no problem. So if you have any queries or any doubts, then you're free to ask. Okay, thank you.